have
Iraq
Benjamin
and Afghanistan are not appropriate comparisons.
Can I finish my point? Let me finish my point.
Sorry.
The United States right now is dealing with $37 trillion in debt. We're spending $1 trillion a year to service that debt. Israel had an economic surplus in 2021. We haven't had an economic surplus since 2001. These bunker buster bombs cost $3.5 million a piece. I'm with MAGA on this. The actual genuine America First crowd.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to yesterday's news channel, where we watch CNN so you don't have to. Yesterday on NewsNight with Abby Phillip, the panel tackled two big topics: immigration and Iran. And that's, whatever. But the craziest part is that the most reasonable voice on the panel wasn't Scott Jennings. It was Anna Kasparian. Yeah, that Anna Kasparian. See for yourself. I couldn't believe it either. It sounded like she'd been binge watching my videos and stole half my talking points. Seriously, are we in bizarro world? The most far left panelist sounds like the only sane one in the room other than Shermichael. It's not a great indicator that CNN's on the right track. Anyway, let's watch Anna Kasparian, who suddenly looks like a right-winger compared to the rest of the panel, body a table full of wide-eyed, clueless CNN clowns. Let's go.
Confidence. But if you don't have the regime falls, it's not clear who follows, how a transition to democracy follows. Yeah. You have an IRGC army that is 300,000 strong, and you haven't seen significant defections yet. So there are, while you have a minority in Iran, only 15% support the regime. So you have a huge group who hate the regime and want to see its fall. It's these things don't tend to go very smoothly.
Yeah, and
if it happens.
I mean, they internally have a lot more influence and power than even the population and the polls suggest. The Times had this interesting story talking about Trump over the weekend really changing his posture on this, wanting to get involved in part because, according to them, he realized that he saw all the wall-to-wall imagery of what was being portrayed as Israel's military genius while he was watching Fox News over the weekend. So that is also playing a role, apparently, reportedly, according to the Times.
Yeah, it's pretty disturbing that all it takes is this like weird competitive spirit that Trump has to egg him on to essentially potentially engage in an offensive war against Iran, which I actually think would be absolutely disastrous. Let's just all remember the fact that the United States joined forces with the Saudis to try to defeat the Houthis in Yemen and failed in doing so. The way that we discuss regime change wars in this country is absolutely ridiculous, especially when you're talking about a country like Iran, which has far more military capability than Iraq did. The terrain, the land mass of Iran is obviously a lot more challenging for the United States if we decide to make the mistake of engaging in this war. You also have to keep in mind that, we fought in Afghanistan for 20 years straight. We've spent trillions of dollars on these regime change wars on behalf of Israel, by the way.
And lives.
And so many lives were
lost. It was not on behalf of Israel. It was on behalf of us. You don't remember 9/11?
Right. Okay.
I remember it very well.
Yeah.
And I remember I was in the U.S. government.
I know every regime change war that we do in the Middle East is because we're under threat here in the United States.
But you can't compare. You're comparing the wrong wars.
Well, when you have
Iraq and Afghanistan are not appropriate comparisons.
Can I finish my point? Let me finish my point.
Sorry.
The United States right now is dealing with $37 trillion in debt. We're spending $1 trillion a year to service that debt. Israel had an economic surplus in 2021. We haven't had an economic surplus since 2001. These bunker buster bombs cost $3.5 million a piece. I'm with MAGA on this. The actual genuine America First crowd.
She's sitting here.
This is a problem regardless of what administration is in charge. We should not engage in this war. Look, there's a lot of saber rattling. There's a lot of fear mongering about Iran building nuclear weapons, even though the intel is obviously contradicting. You have Israel saying weeks ago, they shared their intel with the United States and the administration rejected it. Our intelligence community rejected it. They said Iran is not weeks away from building a nuclear weapon. But you want to know something? There are two countries in this whole scenario that do have nuclear weapons. One, of course, is the United States of America. The other, they don't acknowledge it, is Israel. So they act like, oh, we're just little lambs, and it's such a big threat. Okay, the whole thing about nuclear weapons, the reason why the United States can't allow Ukraine to do whatever it wants against Russia is because they're a nuclear power. It is a deterrent.
Well, Ukraine had nukes, remember.
Israel
We told them to
doesn't
get
want
rid of them.
Iran to have a deterrent. Now, in a perfect world, neither of those countries would have nuclear weapons, but one of them does, and the one that does loves to cry about how it's always under threat while it's bombing Iranian embassies in places like Syria, while it's literally allowing its IDF soldiers to shoot at international diplomats as they're visiting Jenin. Like, are we ever going to at least address the belligerence of the current Israeli government?
Also shooting at people in Gaza when they're
mean,
trying to
that's
get
a- that's a
aid.
full-on
Yeah.
I mean, the panel starts off crazy in this clip. I mean, they're spiraling over the idea that Trump might get pulled into a war with Iran, accusing him of being ego-driven and impulsive. I don't know what Trump's going to do, by the way, and there's a fast-growing split in the party over the decision, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it very soon. But I gotta admit, I'm glad Anna was there to just cut through the nonsense. She reminded everyone that the U.S. has spent decades and trillions of dollars in the Middle East. And what have we gotten in return for any of these interventions, wars? Dead Americans, devastated families, mountains of debt. I think it's really hard to justify this thing. And Anna, sounding more conservative with every word, reminded everyone there that we are $37 trillion in debt nationally. She asked the question no one else on the panel would. Why would we get into another regime change war we can't afford? One that's likely to leave us with, once again, nothing to show for it, except maybe a government worse than the one we just toppled. It wasn't a partisan talking point. It's just reality. She doesn't stop there, though, on to immigration.
Tremendously damage our farm industry there and other states that rely upon farming. It's the single largest industry in a state like Pennsylvania that was oh so important to President Trump to win the election. I think he saw that. He saw the farms who've been tremendously supportive of him. Brooke Rollins did a good job advocating on behalf of the agriculture community. You have restaurants and taverns, which he has an affinity for, has an understanding of, so he lumps those together. But it was really about Brooke Rollins advocating on behalf of the agriculture industry. And there's a fight internally on that in the White House.
I guess I'm really trying to understand, why is it okay to say these undocumented immigrants have value and all the other ones who maybe they don't work on a farm, but maybe they take care of someone's child, don't have value, even though similarly they don't have criminal records. They've not,
You're hearing people come out and
so
say,
I guess that's
focus
what
on
I'm
the criminals
asking. Like,
first.
how do you
All of these people
square
have
that?
value.
You
All
know,
these people have value. I want to say that because it's really important. But I also find it incredibly problematic that we have whole industries in this country that literally rely not on immigrant labor, but on illegal immigrant labor. We have to ask ourselves why that is. And I have a problem with these workers being exploited. They have no recourse. They know they can't go to the authorities if they're being mistreated at work. They know that they can get paid even lower than minimum wage with absolutely no recourse. That's a huge problem. And I think the heart of this issue right now, even though, Donald Trump does cruel things, I'll acknowledge that. But the heart of this problem, what led to the situation, is the fact that Congress doesn't do anything. They don't legislate. For decades. They don't legislate. They don't pass the desperately needed immigration reforms that we need. I want people to be protected. But I also don't want entire industries to basically increase their profitability by exploiting labor in this country. And that's what's been going on for a
and
long
that
time.
largely happens.
I know it's just a coincidence, but what Anna Kasparian said about immigration is exactly what I said yesterday. She just told the truth. She talked about how illegal immigration isn't about compassion. It's about exploitation. Entire industries thrive on cheap illegal labor. The left loves the cheap labor. I mean, these workers have no protections. They don't have a voice. They don't have recourse for anything. I mean, I still want them all out of here, but you know what I'm saying as far as the Democrats' hypocrisy. Controversial take here. Anna Kasparian has done real damage in the past with lies about Trump and conservatives. But here's the difference between her and every other progressive loser commentator, even a lot of conservative commentators. She admitted she was wrong. She's even said, I was misled. When's the last time you heard that on CNN or anywhere else? I think she really started waking up when she was getting grief and nasty comments from her own side, her own fans, just for saying that she doesn't want to be called a birthing person or that homelessness is out of control. Oh, by the way, that came up after she, not pretending to be a victim, it just came up organically, told a recent horrifying story that she'd been SA'd by 2 homeless men. And you know what she did? She stood her ground. I respect it. It takes guts. It's very easy for all of us to say, I would always stand my ground too, until you're in that situation. So, I mean, honestly, progressives might be at the top of my list of irritants in my life, but I've got a soft spot for Anna. Bring on all the simp comments. I deserve them. And I just respect anybody that puts truth above their side. My hope for myself is that I can do the same if I'm going to say something I know will be unpopular with you. I mean, telling the truth is literally the least I can do for everything you've done for this channel. And I think anyone that declares that they have the exact prescription as to how Trump should handle this Israel-Iran thing has any clue how many variables go into making a decision like this one and how many different directions the president's being pulled in right now to do this, do that. So I'm just going to watch it as it develops. And to extend an olive branch, I understand the other Republicans of the party that aren't just complete a-holes. It's not completely baseless, but we got to ask, is it worth more American lives, more debt, more chaos? I think I alluded to this earlier. Truth isn't partisan. It's just true. And that's what I, Matthew James, will keep bringing you here on yesterday's news channel. How cringy was that? But let's get a conversation going in the comments. I'd like to get the pulse of what you all think. I mean, I don't know if you're all going to say America first, stay out of everything, or if there are going to be a significant number of you that make the case for intervention. Either way, let me know in the comments. Anyway, that's it for this video. Channel goal was 20,000 subs by the end of June. Unfortunately, I think it's a pipe dream right now. All I'm asking for is as much support as you can give me so I can come as close as possible to 20K in June, because now that I'm most likely going to miss that goal, it's just going to make me look douchier and douchier, like I had way too lofty of a goal. And I really don't think it was. I actually think it's my fault, but here's my pitch. Come on, there are a lot worse people than me on the internet. I'm not a bad guy. Just help me out. Even if you don't, I appreciate you all watching, and I appreciate everything you do for me. Otherwise, as always, really appreciate you taking a couple minutes out of your day to watch my video. Never forget, Jesus loves you. See you guys.